Hi, Matthew. I'm Bill Willoughby. I'm the CEO of Cypress Development Corp. We're a lithium explorer and developer. Our project is the Clayton Valley Lithium Project in Nevada.
Bill, good to see you. It's been a long time. July 2020, would you believe? When we didn't know what COVID really was.
Yes.
Can you remember? Hey, well, good to see you.
That was pre-COVID the last time.
Yeah, it was, well, we're just getting to the throes of it. Do you remember March through to July? We literally didn't know what was coming. By the way, congratulations. Things obviously moved on significantly since we last spoke. I think your big problem when we saw you last was how do we get this thing funded? And it seems the market has been not shy in giving you capital. But so I want to catch up and see what you've been doing, obviously, but more importantly, what you're going to be doing. Market at the moment, how are you feeling about it? What does this cost curve for lithium look like, and where's it going?
Well, on the lithium side, it's been strong and it continues to stay strong. That's a positive. I think everyone knows the markets are rather opaque right now where we're going, but a lot of commodities are in the process of pulling back. Gold, copper, you've seen declines there. But lithium stays strong. I think it will continue to have strength as long as the auto manufacturers and markets stay strong. So the demand for green energy is here, and we're working to be part of that.
Right, but it's just, I'm trying to understand the sort of the economics around the sustainability of the price, because if I listen to most CEOs of lithium companies, they're all coming into production at some time. And, we've even had, I think we had one CEO come on here and talk about being able to supply the whole world's needs. You kind of got the big guys down in South America also able to kind of turn the tap on. It's like, can the price sustain? Will demand outstrip supply?
Well, all the forecasts show several times growth from where we're at right now, and growing to, say, better than 1 million tons per year of lithium carbonate demand, say by 2025 even. We're somewhere right around 600,000 tons a year, I believe, worldwide. Our main focus is being a U.S. domestic source of lithium. There's good optics on that right now. The U.S. wants to source its lithium domestically, and there's something like 13 gigawatt factories that have been announced coming online for the U.S. Say just alone, if you have GM and LP, their last announced one was a 50 gigawatt hour plant. For that, you need about, say, 40,000 tons of lithium carbonate a year to feed it. Our project, we're trying to hit that number between 20 and 30,000. So we see that the demand is there domestically, and that's a niche that we're trying to fill.
Okay. I mean, and in terms of the US, we've talked about critical mineral lists for decades, but it's starting to become feel a little bit more real. We've seen it with uranium. We're seeing it now with battery metals broadly, and that kind of US ecosystem. But is the money following suit? And if so, where's that money coming from? Is industry stepping into the breach here? Is it OEMs, battery manufacturers, or is the street still providing the capital that you need?
So far, the street has provided us with the capital we need to get through the pilot stage and feasibility. As we move further, we're looking more to conventional financing and, say, a possible joint venture partner to come in and help. That could be a major miner or a chemical company, or even on a power side. We're looking for, our process is power intensive, green energy, solar, geothermal probably will wind up being a component of that. So we're looking at a lot of creative options in that regard. So.
Right. And in terms of, you've obviously got the pilot plant up and running, and you've talked about being able to produce lithium carbonate, right? So if you can just talk about the pilot plant, is that phase finished now? You're looking to kind of move through to actually building a full demonstration plant, or indeed a production plant? I mean, how does it work? What's the plans?
Well, we've been operating our pilot plant for about 9 months now. We've collected, I think, most of the data that we actually need to do the feasibility study. So where we're at with the pilot plant now is moving more into a demonstration optimization mode, where we're looking to try some different ideas on the process itself, working on the extraction of the lithium from the clay, I think the direct lithium extraction, the DLE portion of it's working well, but just continuing to operate the pilot plant in more of a demo mode and show people that it works and gain more data that way.
Right. And so how much did you rate? How much did the pilot plant cost?
Oh, it was under $2 million for us. It was quite reasonable. We were fortunate. We acquired by lease a site about 100 miles south of the project in Amargosa Valley. And that site was a former gold refinery, so it already had the building, the permitting, everything was in place. Personnel there were available to us, so we trained them up as operators for the pilot. And that probably saved us a couple $1 million and jump-started the program by at least 6 months to a year.
Right. And can you continue to utilize that pilot plant as part of the sort of next phase, whether it be demo or full plant?
Oh yeah, it's on an 8-acre site. We've got a 12,000 square foot building, of which we're really using only half of it right now for the processing part. There's room to expand there if we need to go to more of a demo stage. We're running about a ton and a half of material through it right now.
Right, and just so to kind of, like, I think we actually had a little chat before we started. I just want to keep this kind of helicopter level, because we haven't spoken for a couple of years, right? Over a couple of years. Just trying to kind of get a kind of all the moving parts and trying to understand, you know, what they are, where they're at the moment. And then perhaps you said that you come on to part 2 with us, which is, we'll get a little bit more technical for people that want us to go there. But so can I just sort of tip my hat towards that now, though, which is with regards to the DLE thing. I think last time out it was where's the money coming from? And obviously DLE, unknown, unquantified technology, really. And, you know, it needed to kind of work quite hard to get people to believe that it could produce economically. So you've acquired a technology, you have produced, it's at pilot plant level, which is better than lab, but how do the economics now relate to what the economics could be when you kind of ramp up or scale up in this?
Well, a lot of the numbers that we've generated out of the pilot plant have been consistent. We've seen with what we had in the PFS in terms of acid consumptions, in terms of power costs. They're all expected. We haven't really seen anything that's unusual. I would say let's back up and rethink this process. The DLE portion we acquired from Chemionics. Chemionics' license rights were acquired just recently by Koch Industries, Koch being multi-billion-dollar company worldwide. So there's a kind of an endorsement, you might say, that technology is worthwhile and worth pursuing. The type of direct lithium extraction that we do is based on ion exchange. That's not unusual. That's basically water treatment and has been used for years and years. So, and nothing really in our pilot plant is that strange or unusual to the chemical or mining industry. So we look at the pilot plant and see how we can scale it up.
But Bill, there's a kind of mystery around this kind of, lithium clays, right? It was unusual. Not many people were doing it. It was hard rock or brine were the two options, and clay sort of, I guess, felt like it sort of sat somewhere in the middle. So do you think the market now understands how lithium clays, have a part to play in all of this? Do they believe that they will be able to produce?
I think you've got two good examples at Thacker Pass and Rhyolite Ridge that have progressed very well. Bacanora down in Sonora is, I'm not sure of the current status, but it got through a demo plant stage. So yeah, there's questions around it. Nobody's doing it just yet, but can you recover by leaching metals from clay? Well, China does it for rare earths all the time. So it's just a different form, different approach. If the power costs and the acid consumptions all look in line and it's economic, I don't see a reason why it shouldn't go ahead.
No, there's a lot of conversation around. We've had a few of the companies, Ioneer and Ionic, Noram and American Lithium, etc. All on talk. That's Iconic. That's it. Talking the same game, and it seems to me there's been a shift, or quite frankly, an education on behalf of brokers and funders about its possibilities, which is significantly advanced from where it was a couple of years ago, when I think there was uncertainty around it. So, yeah, I accept.
Well, I'm going to jump in and say all clay deposits aren't the same. They've got different locations, different problems that they have to go through. You mentioned Ioneer, they're a combined lithium and borate deposit. So some of their economics is based on boron. You have, just for similarity, we're probably a lot like Thacker Pass, lower grade, however. Some of our issues are different than what you see at Thacker Pass. Ours clay is right at the surface, it's flat, it's easily excavated, and we have a different regime in terms of acid consumption on our material. So there are differences, and likely there's differences in the approach and the type of impurities you're dealing with, much like a brine.
Yeah, no, understood. Different sets of challenges, and I guess different economics as a result of that. And so how do you kind of communicate why yours is going to be the one that will make it out the other side versus whatever people may think of the other players in the space? Because I think the US ecosystem is really, really interesting now in terms of it's a big conversation in the context of Russia, Ukraine, and critical mineral lists and metal security it means something right now. Mm-hmm. So how do you take advantage of that?
Well, I think our way we communicate is by doing. And that's what we've been doing with our pilot plant, with our feasibility study, with everything that we're doing and moving the project forward. So seeing is believing, and that's our focus, is to bring it along and show that our process works, show that we can deal with it and make a battery-grade product at the end. And I think we've accomplished tremendous amount of work in the last year and a half, thanks to all our people.
Right. Okay. So next phase, you're going to put out a feasibility study. You've got a sense of the recovery rates and the network broadly. You're going to have to move to the next phase, which is providing product or samples into market. So there's the whole process to go through. What's the outreach to you been like? Because when we're speaking to battery manufacturers or OEMs broadly, they're very keen to get some sense of where the supply comes from. They're moving upstream, as it were. They're trying to get involved with a lot of your peers. We've seen a few contracts signed over the last 12 months to ensure that. You obviously would like that because it gives you some certainty around your financing and cost of financing. So any conversations going on right now? Well,
we've had conversations, but we haven't gotten to the point of saying we want an offtake agreement. We want to encumber the project with anything other than keeping ourselves open to the options of financing and possible partners at this point. We obviously don't want to do a offtake agreement that might limit, say, a major miner coming along and jumping in with us.
Right. But it's obviously a bit early for that. But is anyone putting a hand up and going, when you're ready? Because I don't know how much you've actually produced from the pilot plant, but obviously you have to produce a lot more samples.
Oh, we've done about 25 or 30 kilos or so of material so far from the final polished battery-grade material. And with that, that's enough to ship it around to, say, auto manufacturers and see if they like it or not. But they're not really the ones. You want to go battery producers, so it'd be people like LP or Panasonic, Tesla
as well, right? So what is the size of how many target off-takers are there in the US in this ecosystem? Because you obviously most people would look to Korea or Japan in terms of, we're going to get ex-China here as battery manufacturers, possibly even Europe. But in the US, what's the size of the ecosystem there?
There's not a large number. I'd say 3 or 4 perhaps right now. But as the world needs more EVs and more battery producers, then there's a lot more options out there that we aren't exploring at this point.
Right. Okay. It's a very short Christmas card list. So what do you do about that? Or is that something that you're yet to kind of get into, or do you recognize that at some point you're going to have to start putting yourselves out there to those small handfuls of battery manufacturers and let them know that you're going to actually be able to deliver it? I mean,
I would say that that's at least 4 or 5 months down the road for us.
okay, it's not too far away.
That it's going to depend on what sort of partnership and relationship we develop from this point, as far as JV partners or potential investors coming in. You could have a party come in that has metals marketing as part of their corporate structure, and they want to do that. And having an existing offtake would possibly encumber that. So that type of partner coming in or financing.
Right, okay. And again, so I'm just trying to keep this kind of broad for today, because I'm trying to get a sense of all the moving parts. With Augusta, Nevada, obviously great mining jurisdiction, but it's sort of been sort of mixed feedback for us in terms of what the government says. They want to be a green economy and support battery revolution, versus the kind of increased amount of paperwork around environmental licensing, permits, etc. How easy is it actually to do business in relation to what the government is promising?
Well, permitting in the U.S. can be very difficult. You can't gloss that over. However, for where we are, I look at projects by what's the actual site like, what's the infrastructure around it, and what are the challenges in the permitting process. For our site, we really have no surface water of concern. The aquifer below us is a saline brine, so the groundwater protection is almost built into the project. It's a clay. The runoff from clay is going to be minimal. We're in a great location, being in an arid climate with sparse vegetation there. We've done a year's worth of baseline studies and more. We know what the flora and fauna is like on the site. There's no threatened endangered species. So that part of the permitting process looks good. We still have more cultural work to do, but as far as our baseline work, we don't see any real cultural concerns that we're going to have to work around. So just the permitting aspects of our project, I think, will prove themselves to be different than, say, Ioneer's Thacker Pass, those types of projects where they do have concerns that have been identified. So.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Well, I guess if you've got the plant through, you must have done some meaningful work to have got that through, and you can utilize that in the feasibility studies that's coming up. Can you, or is there more work to do?
Right. I mean, something can always crop up on a project, and that then hits the headlines and becomes part of the story on the project, and you have to deal with it. You can't move a deposit, however. That's awful hard to do. So you have to deal with what Mother Nature gives you. And what we have at our project site, I think, is about as good as you're going to come across in the U.S.
And with regards to, again, coming back to this U.S. government question, we've seen this in other metals and other commodities where the U.S. government talks a good game, and then occasionally actually comes up with some money. So in terms of funding for feasibility studies, in terms of funding that you can apply for, grants, etc., or even incentives. So are you tapping into any of that?
We've had some discussions with DOD and DOD. So that type of funding could come available to us. More likely, the point we jump in on it is after we have the feasibility study completed and we are fairly well along in the permitting process. We intend to kick off our permitting, the NEPA process, here in another month or so, since we have the documents together and put that in front of BLM.
Right. Okay. And what's the time frame for something like that?
Well, we're hoping that we can go through the NEPA process and all of the permitting in about a year and a half.
Right. Okay. And where's that put you in terms of?
And that's the most significant permit, is getting a record of decision and then going through the EIS. So the other permits we'll need a water pollution control permit from the state, air quality permit. Those are I wouldn't say shorter time frame. The water pollution control permit can take you over a year now, but hopefully we can streamline these things and get those moving on at least.
Right. Okay. Okay. Were you? Sorry, I could ask. Were you at any? Have you done any conferences recently?
Any conferences? Well, I went to a conference last week, which was the Global Clean Energy Action Forum in Pittsburgh. I was just attending. That was interesting.
Right.
As far as presenting, I think we've done a benchmark one or two and a couple others.
Right. Okay.
But that one last week was the first one in person that I've gone to.
No COVID to report. Yeah. I'm just sort of intrigued by the sort of this kind of move back to conferences. It's back again. I think people are taking advantage of that. What your kind of feedback.
I know we have a number of them on the schedule coming
Right.
up over the next couple months.
Right. In Europe?
I'm mainly focused on the North America, U.S., so I'm not planning to go outside of the country yet.
Okay, that's right. There's about 3 coming up in Europe or so.
I still like the virtual conferences.
Yeah, much more.
Those are easy to get
They're
to.
efficient. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So with regards, I said at the beginning, you've kind of found it easy to kind of actually, well, maybe easy is the wrong word, but you have been able to get money when you've needed it. How much are you sitting on at the moment?
Oh, we probably have close to 30 million Canadian in the bank,
Right.
roughly.
Right.
Enough to finish off our feasibility study and get well into permitting. And we will be looking for additional financing down the road. We don't like to draw down the bank account to nothing. So
Right. Okay. And so it gets you through the feasibility and through permitting. And what's that kind of timeline? Where does that take you to?
Well, that would be all of next year on the permitting side, for sure. We'll continue to run the pilot plant, continue to work on optimizing and producing product from there, and maybe even step it up and put more material through it.
Right. And what could that look like? Because there's a bit that intrigues me about, companies like yours, they go through those phases, pilot plant, demo, production, right? So is this still because there's still kind of some science to work out that, in terms of, can we get the recovery rates higher? Can we remove impurities more efficiently? It's still, you're inward looking at the moment. At what point could you use the pilot plant to actually try and get some of these interested parties on board, as it were?
Well, I think we're in the process of doing that right now. It's looking at the process and seeing what can we do in terms of temperature leaching or acid concentration, the way we're neutralizing the impurities. We're trying that on every run. We run about a 7 to 10 day continuous cycle that gives us meaningful data. And from that, we change a few parameters every time we do a run. I think we're on about our 20th or so continuous run now.
Right.
So
interesting.
it is there is more things that we can do. One thing that's critical to us is the acid consumption. Right now, we're probably in the ballpark of 100 to 120 kilos a ton on consumption of hydrochloric acid. We would like to see that number way lower. And rather than build a bigger acid plant, we'd like to just cut the consumption of the acid down and then be able to keep or even exceed that target production out of the plant. So, there's always things that can do, but I think in the clay space, there'll come a time when we see a breakthrough and the acid number will drop down, and we will then be a whole lot more productive with the project. Be a lot more interesting at that point.
Yeah, for sure. And how do you?
It's interesting right now in terms of economics, so don't downplay that part.
No, never. With regards to people, though, how's it been? Obviously, you've been through a COVID period where people can't travel. Quite frankly, people are in short supply, and therefore prices are going up. Have you got found it easy to get the people that you want, and going forward, given you're moving through you can start moving through a different slightly phase in the next sort of 6 months or so. Are you going to be able to find the people that you need to be able to help you with that? Because I guess you're all hands to the pump, and
well, as we go down the road and get closer to building and construction, obviously we need a lot more people, and that's a work plan that still needs to be developed to find all the personnel we have. We've gotten to this point quite well with our owners team, which basically is a group of consultants that we've assembled. So some people don't need to work full time. We use them part time, and others are working 150% of the time.
Right. Okay. So you like that kind of outsourced model? Okay. Interesting. Well, look, Bill. I just wanted to sort of touch base with you, but perhaps if we can get you back on, if you don't mind, we can just a slightly more technical session. This is really for an audience who haven't kind of got exposure to your project, to get them to kind of look in and sort of tip their hat at it. But I'd be happy to go a lot more technical next time around. You can tell us a little bit more about the technology, what it's achieving, and quite frankly, how this thing moves forward and into commercialization. Because that's the bit that everyone's interested in. Is like, when does this thing make money, and then how do you get that financed? If you're up for that, we can do a part 2 to this conversation.
Sure, that'll be a
brilliant.
Good opportunity to do that.
Brilliant. Okay, I appreciate that. But we'll give you a shout and try and arrange a date with you. So I appreciate your time today, and we'll see you soon. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that. Take care.